Talking financial organization and a professional practice does not have to be boring. Are you ready for a few money in, money out ideas? It's Susan Gunn coming directly to your head to make you think. Can you handle the truth? Because she is known for being energetic, laughs a lot, and gives honest, sometimes direct, but always practical advice. It's time now for Money In, Money Out.
It is a pleasure to be back with you today. We have some really fun fraud cases. That's almost like an alliteration. Cases to talk about. And joining me again is co-host Janice Jansen.
Thanks for having me.
Can we sound any more nerdy? Let's try to sound nerdy.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. We're like watching each other and making faces and stuff. So we are both certified fraud examiners. You wouldn't know it, but being the nerds that we are. And we work primarily in the dental industry. However, we have made this a point in case that we are not going to talk about any past cases or ongoing cases of our own in order to preserve evidence and convictions. However, we are total trolls when it comes to the Department of Justice press releases, or anybody else's law enforcement press releases for that matter, when it comes to fraud and embezzlement. So some of the cases, I just got to say, you wouldn't be able to make up the details. They are so dumbfounding. Dumb and dumber, maybe. So we've picked out a few for you today that fall into that category. But before we move on to the ones we picked for this podcast, let's pick up one we talked about in a prior podcast. The last time, I think it was the last time, wasn't it, Janice? The last podcast?
I'm thinking that it was, but...
It was recent anyway.
Yeah, it was.
We talked about 3 home health care company owners in 2 states that were charged in a $6.7 million insurance fraud. They were the ones that paid marketers for their referrals. You know, even though that was part of the big no-no charge, the best charge was that she submitted Medicare. You're probably going to remember it for this. She submitted Medicare frauds as a registered nurse, that she performed patient assessments. Well, it wasn't that she performed patient assessments that was the fraud. The fraud was that she was out of the country when the alleged assessments were performed.
Yeah, she wasn't even available.
No, she wasn't available. She wasn't even there.
Right.
So according to the DOJ press release last week, it was their, quote, practice to admit, discharge, and recertify certain patients repeatedly, regardless of their medical conditions, end quote. I thought that was an interesting quote that the DOJ included to say that this was the home health care agency, that this was what they were supposed to do, but it was regardless of the actual medical conditions.
Right.
Well, thankfully they were sentenced. She is 61 years old and sentenced to 2 years in prison, and her husband is 71 years old and was only sentenced to 18 months in prison. I felt like that was really light.
Yeah, it does seem, I mean, that's a lot of money for 18 months. But
and she's 61 years old.
Yeah.
She has to repay $6,643,094.
I hope she has some stuff to liquidate.
Yeah, well, he was ordered to pay $1.592362 in restitution.
Wow.
That's a chunk of change, right?
Yeah.
That's $8,235,456 in total restitution.
And were they married?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought so.
Well, he's 71. What's the likelihood of him having that?
Yeah, exactly. Unless he's got that money saved somewhere and it's available.
Well, or hidden in a chest,
right?
Ice chest, like one of my cases,
right?
Maybe because they were both convicted and they are husband and wife, hopefully law enforcement will be able to liquidate their joint assets.
Right.
But I never feel like the sentences are strong enough to match the level of dishonesty that's needed to commit that kind of fraud.
They never are, Susan. I mean, even in the fraud cases that we have, it's never enough, it doesn't seem like.
Well, but these aren't stupid fraud like some of the ones we see.
Well, I know, but even
these aren't stupid fraud. These are perpetuated over so many years. And it takes planning and organization and follow through. And there were a whole bunch of marketers.
Right.
Remember that? They were marketing, and so they were giving kickbacks to the marketers for patient referrals. Beds and heads is what we called that in the psych world. So, yeah, I just $8,235,456. That's what they have to pay back at 61 and 71 years old.
We'll see how that happens.
Well, they never thought they'd get caught.
No.
I don't even think Bernie Madoff thought he was going to get caught.
Well, I think a lot of them, they don't. They get away with it for so long that they think that it's that they're getting away with it, and it's not. They're not going to get caught. But
no,
they always do.
They do, don't they?
Yes. So if you like that one, I have another healthcare fraud, and it caught my eye because it was from my home state, Missouri.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, you can't trust those people in Missouri.
Right.
The show me state.
It's the show me state. Yeah, well, they showed it. So so this one was a multi-million-dollar bribery and embezzlement. And it was actually, they were bribing Arkansas officials. This was a husband and wife. They're 66 and 63. So I'm like, a lot of this is similar to that one that we talked about. So they had facilities in Missouri, Kansas, Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Illinois. But it looks like from the DOJ's report that it was just the Arkansas officials that they bribed them to provide favorable legislation for their healthcare facility. And also they directed funds to their company from the state's general improvement fund. So these officials sent them money. So it was very interesting. They have to pay $4.3 million. And so,
who are they paying?
The state of Arkansas.
Okay.
Yeah. So the wife was sentenced to up to 5 years in prison, and the husband was sentenced to 8 because he filed some false tax returns also. So I'm guessing that's why he got more time on that one. But also the company that they worked for, that they were executives for, they have to pay an additional $8 million. So, yeah.
Okay, but wait a minute. So it's 12 million total, right?
Yep, 12.3.
Where were they prosecuted?
They were prosecuted
Missouri
in
or
Missouri.
Arkansas?
In Missouri.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
And they got how long?
5 years for the wife and 8 years for the husband.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Look at the difference on this. This one that I talked about, where was that at? I can't remember. Anyways, they only got 2 years. And the husband only got 18 months. There's some wide variations.
There is.
In prosecutorial sentences.
It depends on who the prosecutor is, I guess, and who you've got there.
And how lenient it is, right?
Right. But this prosecution included the IRS, the FBI, the Inspector General, the DOJ, and the FDIC. So that might be why they got a higher sentence too, because they don't all include all of those divisions.
They better be careful. They'll get the Department of Agriculture after them or something.
Yeah, no kidding.
Let's just pull out all the stops. United States Postal Service.
Right. I mean, yeah. But there were actually
Actually,
even several of the former executives for that company also got charged.
so what about the bribed officials?
So they're all getting charged as well. They, let's see, each one of them had some, they pled guilty. They don't say what those others did. They say they all pled guilty, but they didn't say what they got.
Swept under the carpet.
Right.
Maybe a little sweeping.
Right.
Or maybe they offered evidence.
They may have. Yeah, maybe they were, maybe some of them gave evidence, but yeah, it doesn't say if they were charged. They might have been charged and it's not on there, but I don't see anything.
Well, that was a Missouri release. Maybe they were charged in Arkansas.
They might have been, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it always amazes me again that these happen and nobody ever thinks they're going to get caught. And that involved, I mean, like a wide array of people. It was a pretty big scheme.
It was. I mean, that was a big array of people. I found it really interesting that so many of the governmental departments were involved in that too. I don't see all of that a lot of times, so that was interesting.
They were like that on a vulture on dead meat on the side of the road, right?
Right. Crazy.
Well, the next one I want to talk about wasn't as wide of a scheme. It was a really narrow scheme, but it was really interesting. And it should be obvious why I want to talk about this next one based on prior podcasts. So let me set the stage a little bit. This embezzlement happened in Northern California. Typical scenario for what Janice and I deal with. Trusted female was working as a bookkeeper for local businesses. More than one business. Keep that in mind as I tell you the other details in a sec. More than one business. She was bookkeeping. So, law enforcement said they began investigating when it was discovered she was using the employer's credit cards to make personal purchases without consent. Oh well, how many times have we heard that? A lot. In addition to the more than $72,000 she spent on Amazon.
Oh my gosh.
$72,000. She spent other amounts for her utility bills, vacations, personal items. It had added up to about, roughly about $100,000. And that's what they found. When they searched her home, they found electronics, clothing, appliances, and computer equipment. Okay, that was the DOJ press release. Well, yes, if they searched my home, they would also find all those items as well.
Sure, yes.
So I assume that what we read implied that those items were connected to the unauthorized credit card charges. I mean, I hope.
I would assume so, yes. You would think.
Well, you would think. And that was just one employer, one business that she did bookkeeping for. And the article stated that they found evidence that she may have embezzled from the other employers. You think?
Yeah, more than likely.
Right. So Janice and I say all the time, if you discover embezzlement from somebody that's still working for you from 2 years ago, chances are they're still embezzling. It doesn't stop because they got away with it.
That's right.
And so they only keep going.
Yeah. And so, most of the time it gets more intense as the years go on.
Oh, yeah.
However, yeah.
Well, which is why we both start at the present and work our way back. So I'd say it was a good call that they decided that they found evidence that she might have embezzled from the other employers. We've been warning about Amazon charges for a while now because there is no real availability to research what a business credit card is used for unless it is charged on the business account for Amazon.
Right.
We strongly recommend that you listeners have, if you own a business, that you get a business Amazon account so that all can be charged to that account. And that way, the research can be done to find out what the charges are. But if it's a personal account owned by somebody in your practice, you can't always go back and see what was charged. So you need to make sure about that. Okay.
Yeah.
So here's another here's another tidbit that makes this case really interesting. Are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
The bookkeeper was previously convicted in 2017 for grand theft.
Oh my goodness.
We can't make this up.
No, you can't.
Then she was arrested for embezzling $300,000 from a property management company. She faced more than 33 charges that included 33 counts of grand theft, 2 counts of willfully failing to file tax returns, 2 counts of intent to take property, special allegation, I don't know what that means, 1 count of willfully filing false tax returns, that was interesting, and 1 count of aggravated white-collar crime. So what's interesting to me is that most of them were dismissed, and she only pled guilty to failing to file taxes and 2 counts of theft. That's it.
Wow.
I know. So I'm thinking now, hindsight's 2020, right? Maybe they shouldn't have dropped those other charges.
Maybe
especially the white collar crime.
Yes.
Maybe it would have been a good idea to keep that one there.
Wow.
She went right back to what she was doing.
Sure.
She was sentenced, and remember this was 2017. She was sentenced in that case 18 months in jail and 3 years mandatory supervision. So let's do the math. It's 2022.
Right.
2017 was 5 years ago.
So she's done.
18 months was 1.5 years ago. She was booked in the jail this time for embezzlement, even with all this other information, and her bail was only set at $10,000.
Unreal.
She's a serial embezzler.
Yeah, $10,000.
Well, she's 48. And I'm wondering, California has the 3 strikes law.
Interesting.
And that will apply to her. She's supposed to receive twice the sentencing term for whatever she's convicted of. So let's see what she gets this time.
That'll be interesting.
She didn't take that into account.
Well,
again.
Well.
Yeah, she never thought she was going to get
caught.
Charged, right?
Right. Or charged. Yeah, caught or charged, either way.
Right.
Or she figured she could drop it down to a lesser like she did that first time.
Like she did the first time. Well, her bail was only $10,000.
Unreal.
What are they thinking?
I do not know.
Oh my gosh. Well, but beyond that, why did those people who trusted her to do the bookkeeping not do a background check?
Yeah. Well, we see that so often, don't we?
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
And by the way, I did a Google check on her. And the articles came up on the first page for the 2017 conviction.
Really?
Yeah.
So all you needed to do is a Google check.
She didn't even yeah, no kidding.
You don't even have to do a background check. You could see the other stuff on Google.
Oh, yeah. Popped really. It was news.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Well, you don't know what she spun as far as she wasn't guilty. You don't know what she put out there.
Yeah.
But still, I just couldn't believe that one.
No.
That's another case for you never think you're going to get caught. And she's been twice convicted. And I've had cases where they were convicted in multiple states and they just moved around because the practice typically only does background checks in the state they live in.
Right.
And one of them completely lied, but she had been convicted in multiple states.
Well, and I think we talked about that too before, that, for me to go to a different state, it takes a half an hour to get to Illinois,
right,
for me. So it's not too hard to do that. You see people that live in Illinois that work in Missouri and vice versa, so. Yeah. Well, my next one is one that's near and dear to my heart because, I have had, my mother-in-law has gotten scammed a few times.
Oh, yeah.
Mostly with not like this one, but with having to buy gift cards and that kind of thing. Or the last time she was trying to get help with her printer, and they had her create a Venmo account. And
Oh, my.
yeah, they had control over her Venmo account. So that was problematic. So this one is a grandparent scheme. And it is two men that got convicted in this. And their ages are 30 and 46. So that 30-year-old is pretty young starting out here.
Yeah.
But, this was interesting. One is from Hollywood, California, and one is from Hollywood, Florida. Is that kind of weird?
That is weird.
I thought it was strange. But
that is weird.
Yeah, they each did plead guilty to one count of conspiracy under the RICO Act, but that was, it. So one was sentenced to 108 months, the other for 24 months. But listen, I mean, they called all these grandparents, told them their loved ones were in trouble with the law and that they needed money for bail, or, they needed money for medical expenses, or they hit somebody and they needed to pay the victim of the car accident. But these people, they would go in person to pick up the money.
Oh my gosh.
Right?
Really?
Yes.
Dumb and Dumber.
Not all the time, but so sometimes they went in person. Sometimes they had them mail the money to them. Sometimes they, had them do a wire transfer. And then they laundered all that money through cryptocurrency.
Oh.
Yep.
Wow.
So, yeah. So they were convicted in San Diego, and there is another defendant that is still at large right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So they're still looking for one more person on that.
Well, he's probably in Texas.
Yeah.
Because they had coast to coast coverage. They got to get No, and it could be in Missouri too.
Could be. So yeah, I thought that was really interesting. And I wrote this down so that I want to give this to everybody, because like I said, this is near and dear to my heart. There is a National Elder Fund hotline that if any of you guys have, if you or loved ones have been a victim of this, if you call 1-833 and then it's fraud 11, and the numbers are 1-833-372-8311. You want to report that so that, because the government is really strong about getting these people that are taking advantage of our elderly. So call them and let them know what's going on. I was really interested when I saw it. It is staffed 7 days a week from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m.
Wow. So
that to me tells me how much elder fraud is happening out there.
Oh, it's significant.
It is. It's sad. It makes me very, very sad. I just don't understand people that will.
And we've said this before, but you really need to have the conversations with your elderly, that if anything ever comes up, like they say that their grandson has been in jail and needs money, or whatever someone does, and it seems, and in fact, regardless of what your elder one thinks it is, if it involves going and paying someone they don't know,
right,
for whatever reason, they need to contact you as a son or a daughter, or as a grandson, right, or as a guardian.
Yeah.
If they are being required to pay someone they don't know, they need to contact somebody to ask them if it's valid.
Right. Right. And that's just it. It's like, please call me, or call one of the grandkids, something to make sure this sounds legit, because it's just so sad. But then some other people don't have anybody to call. There are some older people out there that don't have anyone to call. Makes me very sad.
Well, then that's why you got to check with your neighbors.
Right.
And just, you
Yeah, because you
always say
out and stuff, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have to be a contact with your neighbors, and if something sounds funny, then you need to say, hey, because they think, I mean, I saw this with my mom. She thinks she's completely rational and understanding, was understanding everything, and didn't know that her ability to think cognitively or to analyze was impaired. And I mean, I'll let you know how that works as I get older.
Right.
But 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 I think it happens so subtle that you just don't realize it. And it's not a slam to the elderly. It's actually a very loving, kind thing to do to try to help them.
Yeah, take care of them
So,
like they did for us all those years,
yeah,
right? So,
exactly.
yeah. Yeah.
Well, yeah. So next, when I speak in my Money In, Money Out book, I talk a bit about verifying whether your accountant is a true CPA. My next story is about a tax preparer in a tax service that between 2017 to 2022 processed over 4,000 tax returns. Well, that's 5 years. That's really not that big of a deal.
Right.
4,000. 4,000. Now, he probably had a team.
Sure.
But according to the DOJ, quite a significant number of those tax returns contained fabricated business expenses, household help income, business losses, and/or falsely claimed education credits, and fuel excise tax credits that they were not entitled to.
Wow, that's a lot of stuff.
No kidding. Well, it's called creative filing.
There you go.
The DOJ estimated that this tax preparer cost the U.S. more than $4.4 million in tax revenue.
You're kidding me.
No, $4.4 million. So what the headline said, in fact, I think I still have the headline. What the headline says, Justice Department seeks to shut down Texas tax preparer. One of the things that this made the whole article interesting to me was what the DOJ press release doesn't say.
Oh.
It does not say they were prosecuting the tax preparer for tax fraud.
Really?
No. But I bet they vetted the actual federal tax returns of the individuals and fined or filed tax evasion charges against them.
Yes, I bet they did.
Remember, it's not the tax preparer
right.
who ultimately is responsible for the tax returns.
Right.
That's why it's so vitally important for you to review your federal and state tax returns. If you don't understand what they've put on there, then you need to ask questions.
Yeah.
You need to learn. It's your butt in the sling.
That's right.
I wanted to say something else. Now, just kind of put this in reference. I ducked into the audience of a conference I was speaking at one time just to hear somebody giving advice on how to deal with the IRS. I was appalled as I listened because this person was very well respected. And they said, from the stage, that they walk up to the line that's drawn by the IRS and they place their toes on the line up to the outer edge of that line, then lean over as far as they can.
Oh.
Now imagine that.
Okay.
Drawing the line, putting your toes on the line up to that outer edge, and then you lean over just as far as you can.
Oh my gosh.
I couldn't believe what I was hearing. That's when I whispered to my colleague that went in with me. And that's how the French developed the guillotine. They'll lop that head right off after leaning over as far as they can.
Oh my gosh.
That was the most stupid advice I had ever heard.
And why would you say that in a conference like that?
No, oh my gosh. And I looked around the room, and they looked like they were lambs being led to the slaughter.
Sure.
They were soaking in every word.
Right. Well, they want to save money on their taxes, right?
Well, and here's the most concerning part of this. The interpretation of where that line is varies from CPA, from CPA,
You're right.
from CPA
Mm-hmm.
to the IRS auditor.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and
But this guy, I couldn't believe it. I mean, you and I both have met so many IRS fraud investigators at our Association of Certified Fraud Examiner meetings.
yeah.
They love to audit. They
Oh,
are
yeah.
in it because they love to do it.
Right.
And their lines and code interpretations may and probably are different than what you want to see. And you want a CPA that respects that they do not prepare you for the guillotine is
Right.
basically what I
Right.
want to say.
Well, and again, I feel like this is another thing that makes me sad that there are tax preparers and that out there doing that, because there are, not everybody knows what you're looking at when you look at your tax returns, and so it's like, just, it's sad to me that they're taking advantage of people like that.
Oh, well, and again, the tax preparer was only being shut down.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. It's you on the line. So.
Oh, yeah. There are many, many unqualified tax preparers in states. I mean, many, many, many.
Right.
Many. I truly recommend the certified public accountant version, not the other versions.
Yeah.
The CPAs are tried and proved, and there is a clear recourse if they don't do what they say they're going to do, a clear path of accountability.
And they have to keep up with their CEs and all of that stuff too,
And none of the rest of them have to.
Right.
Along that same line, kind of, there was a gal that received a fraudulent tax refund, who tried to prevent the IRS from recovering the refund from her bank.
How they did
along that tax line.
Oh my gosh.
She went to great lengths. I thought it was so funny. I wanted to include it with this.
Yeah.
There's more to her story, but basically she was a participant in a nationwide tax fraud scheme. And she wasn't actually recruited for the scheme, but then she also benefited from it personally by filing a fraudulent tax return for herself.
Well, sure. Why wouldn't she if she's involved in the whole thing?
Listen to what I got to tell you. Well, it's not worth it, but she got a tax return for $240,000.
How? What in the world?
Yeah. I mean, isn't that amazing? It's just baffling to me how somebody could get a tax return with that amount of money.
I cannot understand that. Wow.
Well, and she thwarted the IRS's recovery attempt, and I say thwarted very heavily, by withdrawing large cash amounts in a very short period of time. And then she transferred most of the balance to a trust, all the while sending what the DOJ press release calls, in quote, frivolous correspondent. You just want to go. Yeah, it was called delay tactics,
yes,
I'm sure.
Exactly.
Oh, oops, I accidentally withdraw some of that money. I'll put it back.
Yeah, just give me a minute.
Yeah. Okay, so you know how we've been talking about sentencing? She knowingly and willingly participated in this crime at all levels.
Uh-huh.
Dishonesty to the core. I think most people would agree. If they read the whole thing, it's amazing. Her maximum penalty could have been 3 years with supervised release, monetary penalties, and restitution. You want to guess what she got?
What'd she get?
1 year of supervised release. Not even 3 in prison. Not even 1 in prison, but 1 year of supervised release.
Wow.
And no penalty. And she has to repay $232,185.20 in restitution.
Wow. Unreal.
Sometimes I wonder why we even have maximum sentencings. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, and why do these people get such a light sentence, for stuff like that?
Well, again, it amazes me in different states. I had an embezzlement. I think we've talked about this before. Had an embezzlement in Hawaii, and it was a pretty substantial case. It was over 200,000, and included insurance fraud that the office manager did. And her sentence was no time in jail, and she was only ordered to pay $25 a month in restitution.
Oh,
And it was
wow.
over 200,000. Yeah.
Take the rest of her life if she even pays it back. I mean, how?
No, she'd never be able to pay that back. That's kind of the point.
Well,
Her life expectancy would be I need to figure that out sometime. The doctor said, well, it won't even be my life, and it wouldn't even be my kid's life if she kept going.
Right.
It'd be whatever the next generation was if she finally paid it back.
Yeah, that is insane. Well, and Susan, you said we have such light minimum sentences, but they don't even give them our maximum sentences. They don't even give them that. With her,
No.
She didn't even get any time in jail.
Now, let's be clear, as we're talking about that, we're not encouraging the listener to be involved in crime because of the sentencing being minimal.
Definitely not.
I want to make sure that I am completely clear on that.
Yes.
What is clear is that it's still on your record. It's still, your life that you're giving up.
Well, and your sanity, I would think, to me, it would be.
But plus, how are they going to pay $232,000?
Yeah, at $25 a month. Wow.
Well, that one. I'm sure it didn't say what her monthly payment was.
The only things that they can do, is liquidate if they have any of that left, and so many, if they have property or whatever that they can liquidate.
If they're ordered to do that.
Right.
My Hawaii case was not ordered to do anything.
Really?
Just $25 a month. Yeah, it was pretty low key. That encourages crime. So if you're a judge and you're listening to this, that encourages crime. Well, in fact, there's a study, and we'll talk about that on the next episode, but there is a study that's out that talks about white-collar crime and the rate of people getting away with white-collar crime, because once they get out, they have a big stash of money. So it's interesting. I'll have to dig up the details to be more clear about that.
Yeah, we'll have to look at that.
Yeah. Well, that's it, isn't it?
That is it.
Did we cover them all?
That is all we have today.
It's the Dumb and Dumber rank. I will tell you that these are some of our favorite podcasts to create, and yet they're some of the most mind-boggling in our society. And really, some of our cases do fall into Dumb and Dumber. You just think, you can't imagine that somebody chooses to do this, that it's truly their choice. In fact, we were both commenting about a post we saw and how somebody blamed it on lack of leadership in a practice. That's not lack of leadership. Right. I mean, sometimes it's maybe not as strong as it needs to be.
Sure.
But the bottom line is they still choose to steal.
That's right. No matter what the leadership is, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. No. I mean, that's never, in some of the my bigger cases, they've been good people. Really good people.
Yeah.
Not abusive.
All of them, right?
Yeah. Well, the one thing they all have in common, though, is that they never think they'll get caught.
Right. Yes, indeed.
In fact, we could probably just leave that sentence and make it shorter, is that they never think.
Yes. We can add that to it.
We can add that. But they are, and they do. And some of these are significant in the cost. Freedom and financial, those are all good, and those are the very obvious ones in the sentencing. But beyond the sentencing, what we don't hear about is the cost of their family and friends.
Right.
The cost of being known as a criminal.
Yeah. And known as being related to a criminal or married to one or whatever.
Or your mother.
Right.
or your father.
Yeah. Yeah, it's sad.
I just can't even imagine what precedents that sets for them and the behavior that's being modeled to them, the dishonesty, that it's okay to be dishonest as long as you don't get caught.
Right. Right.
It's one of the reasons I speak on ethics, I guess.
It's probably it.
It's a fuel. The cost of doing crime is a whole lot different than the cost of doing business. So don't fall into a trap of thinking that it's the same. Some people have. Some people have built their businesses in that perspective, like the tax preparer that's being shut down.
Right.
We do get lots of show ideas from our audience. So if you've heard about a local fraud that's caught your attention, that's how we found out about the Dixon, Illinois one, remember?
Yes. That one was crazy.
That was still one of our favorite ones to talk about. So if you hear about something, give us a ring or send us an email and say, hey, you should check this out. We're both in different states and in different businesses for that matter. But if you've heard about something, let us know. We'll check it out for a potential upcoming podcast, and who knows?
Yeah, we would love it.
Yeah. Oh, I would totally love it.
Right.
And just as a reminder, Janice and I's contact information will be in the show notes. So if you do want to hear about anything, or if you've got questions, if something funky's going on in your practice, we do primarily focus in healthcare, specifically in dentistry. But we do know a bit about the other healthcare industries. They're organized the same financially.
Right.
And so if you've got a question, give us a call, send us an email. I'm real excited, Janice, about my next podcast host. I think I told you about her.
Who's that?
Well, I'm going to keep that a secret.
It's a secret.
Yes,
Can't wait to hear.
I heard her speak recently, and she has some very interesting insight outside of the dental industry about the labor shortage.
Oh, interesting.
And what she's done in the midst of it in her industry. How's that for a dangling carrot?
There you go.
I'll dangle that carrot because it's going to be really interesting. She's got some very neat insights, and I was taking notes and then wrote at the bottom of my notes, okay, seriously, I just need to have her on my podcast.
I love it. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah, she's going to be good. So tune in next time. Thank you, Janice. It's always fun to talk about these cases together.
Thank you, Susan. It's been fun, for sure.
But until the next time, choose to always be the very best version of yourself that you can be. Today, start today. And be sure that you lead with integrity. Y'all take care.
Bye-bye.
That's a wrap for this podcast of Money In, Money Out. Thanks for listening. Be sure to write down the most valuable tip you learned today so you don't forget it. And remember, you can find out more about all the valuable books and services Susan has to offer at www.susangunsolutions.com.